Thus heaven I've forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell. Although the quote from Karl Marx was taken from one of his early poems, where poetic license allows for detachment and free expression, one can't help but wonder how much of it is a reflection of his inner workings. Karl Marx was born in Trier, Germany in 1880, the son of a middle-class lawyer who owned a number of Marcelli vineyards. He was ethnically Jewish, coming from a long line of rabbis, especially from his father's side of the family. His father converted over to Protestantism because laws in Prussia at that time prevented Jews from working in certain professions. As a young adult, he followed in his father's footsteps by studying law at Bonn and Berlin universities. His first year at Bonn was not all that successful, spending more time socializing in bars than attending classes. Consequently, his father moved him to Berlin, away from the temptations of Bonn. At this time, he developed a deep interest in philosophy and politics, admiring the works of the great German philosopher Hegel. After graduating, he went on to successfully attain a PhD in philosophy. However, by this time, he had become so radicalized by his left-wing views and associations with various extreme groups that his natural progression into the realms of academia were restricted. He therefore turned towards journalism as a way to survive. In 1841, he began plans to start a journal called Atheistic Archives. However, the project never took off and was forgotten about. The following year, Marx moved to Cologne to work for the Rhineland News, a radical publication which suited his political persuasion, giving him plenty of room to express his socialistic views, while at the same time criticizing and venting his disdain for the right-wing establishment of the day. Consequently, his reporting and views attracted the attention of the Prussian authorities. Marx wrote, "Our newspaper has to be presented to the police to be sniffed at, and if the police smells anything un-Christian or un-Prussian, the newspaper is not allowed to appear." This radical attitude towards the right-wing establishment culminated in a critical publication about the Russian monarch. After reading the article, Tsar Nicholas I asked the Prussian government to remove it from sale, which they did in 1843. Later that year, Marx moved to Paris to co-edit a new radical leftist Parisian newspaper with the German philosopher and political writer Arnold Ruge. This publication and partnership didn't last long, and by the following year Marx had moved over to begin writing for the Forward, the only uncensored bi-weekly radical German language newspaper still in circulation at that time. It was a publication with strong links to a secret socialist society full of workers and artisans, known as the League of the Just. It was around this time Karl Marx refined his views on dialectic materialism, a theory based on the Hegelian dialectic of a thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Whereas the Hegelian dialectic is primarily dependent upon the mind's perception of reality, Karl Marx's materialistic dialectic is based around the assumption that the human consciousness is a response to the material world, not the creator of it. This is very much understandable when considering Karl Marx was an atheist, someone who did not conceive the creator as the benchmark of all creation. Instead, he was very much a materialist, denying the existence of a creator while promoting his vision of a socialistic utopia. This all fits together neatly when using the zodiac as a template for political persuasion, where extreme socialism in the form of communism is found in the houses ruled by Saturn, the planet associated with materialism. In the summer of 1845, Karl Marx and his close friend Friedrich Engels went to England to study the living and working conditions of the country's working class. On their return, they believed that the time was right for the working classes of Europe to rise up and liberate themselves with a working class revolution. They renamed the League of the Just into the Communist League, promoting it forward from just an underground secret socialist society into an outward political movement. Together they worked on the party's manifesto, which would later become one of Karl Marx's best-known writings, the Communist Manifesto. Published in 1848, its release coincided with a great deal of political turmoil at the time. It was a year, especially in France, of republican revolts against European monarchs, ending with the Second French Republic and overthrow of the monarch. Riding on a wave of revolution, Marx was accused of being involved by Belgian authorities. He consequently fled to France before heading to Cologne, hoping the socialist revolution would spread throughout Germany. The King of Prussia once again introduced severe countermeasures against leftist revolutionaries. Karl Marx was ordered to leave Germany and spent the rest of his days stateless, living in London. Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto became the benchmark for almost all the world's far-left socialist and communist movements throughout the 20th century. It is worth pointing out that in modern astrology, the sign of Aquarius has a shared rulership, half ruled by Saturn and half ruled by Uranus, the planet of rebellion and revolution. The theory of the communists may be summed up in a single sentence: abolition of private property. We communists have been reproached with the desire of abolishing the right of personally acquiring property as the fruit of a man's own labour, which property is alleged to be the groundwork of all personal freedom, activity, and independence. Anybody who knows anything of history knows that great social changes are impossible without the feminine ferment. Social progress can be measured exactly by the social position of the fair sex, the ugly ones included. For socialism and communism to thrive, all those values, traditions, and ideologies associated with the right need to be replaced by leftist values. This is one of the main reasons why traditional concepts of masculinity, logic, and rationality are attacked and undermined in favor of feminism and emotional rhetoric when promoting socialistic policies. This is exactly what we see throughout the world as the globalization project moves into high gear undermining old nation states together with their traditional values concerning gender and the role of the family as a whole. As a collective, our wants and needs are also coming into question, being socially engineered as the globalists' program of sustainable development is expanded across the globe. The number of leftist organizations and movements dedicated to either undermining the right or promoting the left is on the rise. A new form of politics is emerging, one in which emotions are taking precedence over truth, facts, and rational arguments. It is becoming fashionable to take offense at the slightest form of displeasure, one which does not fall in line with the left's latest view of how their perfect socialistic utopia should be. A vision of a brave new world offered to them by various sponsored groups and think tanks working for left-wing interests. Many forms of united spirituality, especially those attempting to climb the tree of life, find themselves being targeted for division, decimation, and finally elimination, confirming Karl Marx's suggestion that religion is no friend to the overall happiness of those living within a communist system. Leftists who rely on emotion to bolster their political argument also rely on the expansion of state power to protect their fragile emotions. The underlying purpose behind cultural Marxism is to make society so divided that it can be easily conquered by alternative forces, a situation which ultimately leads to totalitarianism.